Hi, I wanted to come on here and do a little quick insight and sharing of healing through trauma that a lot of us are doing. We're doing the work of reparenting ourselves from intergenerational trauma that oftentimes goes unacknowledged. And in my experience, I am someone who was a very sensitive kid and had a lot of emotions, didn't really know it, didn't know what that meant, had a lot of big feelings, and was often kind of shut down and told I had to go, be by myself and till I, feel better pretty much, which I now know didn't work for me very well. Thankfully, I had two loving parents that did love me, but they just didn't know how to deal with their own emotions to be able to support me with mine. And so, even so, having those, significant attachments that I had, I've really struggled with, just a lot of things, but some of them, emotionally over my kind of journey was, having a good self-image. And so one of the things that's coming up for me this week and presently is when we are starting to be more expressive of our truth, and our family has a hard time accepting that or hearing that and acknowledging it and what we're left to do with that. So for me, it comes up in, around issues of body image. I'm learning and addressing a lot of these things through having my daughter now, who is exposed to a lot of the same things I was exposed to as a child, especially a female child, that was kind of encouraged or, persuaded without really overtly being said, but covertly kind of like, you need to be okay with whatever is said to you, and calling you a fat or a pig or like things like that are maybe not, they're supposed to be funny, and also like they're deeply not okay from what we know now with research and trauma and self-image, especially with women and girls, that in those formative years, that those things get absorbed on a subconscious level because our inner voice comes from our parents in attachment theory. We are co-regulating off of our parents' sense of self, their attachment. And so if our parents have heard these messages growing up and they didn't even know, they just kind of accepted it like, oh, this is okay, it's just a joke, I can, I need to just be like, have a light sense of humor and let these things go, or, not take it personal. Like, that's fine and good for some people that maybe have some type of attachment or connection with their emotions where they don't necessarily feel like they need that support or validation or respect. But for those of us who are more self-aware of our emotions, we start to heal and learn that we are deserving of more than that. We, deserve respect, and also that it's really problematic to say those things to girls. And so my experience was, whenever I brought up body image issues with my parent, it was always kind of denied, of like, oh, I don't have any issues with that, and just not able to kind of acknowledge that there were issues on their end, and so in that sense, like, not able to acknowledge like or validate that the very real experience I had of having those things affected by the voice of those parents, grandparents that I heard, that were very highly critical of themselves and voiced that out loud to me from early and often from a young age, then influenced my internal voice. And so, not here to blame or shame, but just kind of acknowledging, speaking my truth, that that's what was, and I'm deeply compassionate about that. It comes from a hurt, unhealed part of those parents and grandparents. So I'm not at all, saying that they had their own experiences growing up that were not also kind and loving, and that's how they weren't with that capacity. And so, not saying that, my emotional like wellness is their responsibility finally, like my self-worth, but at some point when you have a child, it is like you are responsible for being able to hold space for all of your kid, not just their physical needs, not just their school needs, it's their emotional, their everything, their self-worth. Like, you are the voice that helps them build that. So, you know, not surprisingly, this is some of the reasons that I got into counseling or therapy, it's a passion for my career, is, you know, struggling with those teenage years and those formative years in which self-worth was really a big piece. And, you know, I struggled with having disordered eating symptoms and all these things because of self-image and body issues that, you know, it's a part of me that I've always had these voices that, like, parts of myself that were critical, that mirrored a lot of what I heard growing up, that I kind of internalized. And so I came on here to say that there's still parts of me that are still challenged with this, because I hear things said in front of my daughter, you know, not to be intentionally mean or cruel, I don't think, but I think it's just because there's some unconscious comments. And I even struggle to speak up towards them still, because there's a part of me that's still very much hurt and just doesn't want to even deal with those comments. But I'm just realizing really that it's hard to be able to kind of feel fully seen or repair those relationships with those caregivers when they can't really acknowledge that that was even an issue, or that it's even a valid issue. And so I'm just on here to say, like, thankfully I don't need that anymore. Like, I've been able to build my own inner nurture parts and, you know, reparent myself, and I have a really healthy parent, you know, parts inside of me that I get to experience really strongly now with my daughter, and, you know, and how protective I am over all these parts of her, that's like really my you know, part of what's really helped me to continue to grow and be more solid in these areas. But I just came on here to say that, you know, it's really hard when you don't have those parts validated, and it doesn't make it okay. It doesn't mean they're not valid. They are, and your feelings matter, and no one should have to hear comments like that. And, you know, we can still love people like that in our lives, you know, that are still stuck in, you know, old ways of not being aware of how their words might impact others. And, you know, and I do plan to address this with the family members I have in the past. I do plan to continue to address it. So I do, like, you know, certainly, you know, taking action and actively responding to these things. But I'm just here to say that, like, you don't need your parents or your grandparents' validation to know that these things that you went through affected you, and they're not okay. And it's okay to not be okay with it. It's okay to feel challenged with it. It's okay to, you know, feel conflicted internally of, like, I love these family members, and also, like, they still don't know how to learn from these things when we try and address it with them in a very, like, conscious way. Because a lot of times it's like a part of the ego that's, like, not able to look at their own experiences yet in a way that's, like, being vulnerable. So, you know, either way, like I said, you know, just, it's something that I think is important to share about, especially for those of you out there who maybe have had family members that, you know, may say comments that influence your self-worth still, your life choices, whatever, your, you know, sexual identity, you know, marital status, like family status, whatever, like all these things, like, I just want you to know I see you, and, you know, you don't have to have the validation of those people in your family, or for them to understand or validate you to be able to heal these parts of you. It still hurts, but also, like, I think it's a really helpful point for reflection now, knowing how I don't have to have their validation to know that it's okay or not okay, that those things happen, because I know within me, that part deep within me, that's unshakable. So allow me to be that for you today. If you need that, I'm here, sending my heart, you know, space and love to you, just knowing my presence to say I'm here with you, and it's not easy, and you're doing amazing, and, you know, keep taking care of you. The message that channeled through for me today was to treat yourself